near a park, that they can go walking. So all of these are things that you need to know. Know your number, know your criterias, and then thanks to AJTV, a lot of people think they're gonna come see 3 houses and pick one, and this is the ideal house, they're gonna get everything that they want. Does that really happen, Evans?
No, I've been doing
No.
this for 10 years, I have not seen that happen.
Evans canceled HGTV on his service.
How can you do that? That's not my favorite.
Yeah, so TV versus reality is totally different, and sometimes like we have to sit with you, have a consultation of your must-have, your needs, and what are some wants that we can probably like taper off, because the more things you want, it's the more money it's gonna be. The more realistic you are, the easier we can find a house that meets your criteria and get you in. What's one of the pros of paying a mortgage instead of rent?
Well, first of all, the prices of rents right now are crazy. Even though the mortgage payments are also high because the rates are higher, but here's your benefits. At the end of the year, you're writing off all the mortgage interest that you paid on the mortgage. The first 5 years of the mortgage is a lot of interest. So that's a tax shelter, the best you're ever gonna have. $10,000 of property taxes you could write off. So if your property taxes on Long Island are $13,000, 10,000 of that, you write it off. And the biggest advantage is every month that you're making a payment, you put in a little equity in the house. It's a forced savings. And to be honest with you, that's the reason why you wanna buy a house. You're not only gonna live there and enjoy it, you're building wealth for you and your family and whoever you're leaving it to. Look at the prices of houses right now. I mean, I could tell you people that, myself included, I'm in the same house 30 years. I wish I would have bought 5 of them back then. And when I bought my first house, my interest rate was 8.25. My taxes were $10,000. I was coming from Brooklyn, and my father thought I was out of my mind. Cause back then, living in Brooklyn, you're only paying like $2,000 a year in taxes, you know? And he thought we were doing something crazy. But that's the reason why you wanna own a house. And when somebody says it's not the right time, there's no right time to buy a house. The time in the market is how you're gonna make money. The real estate market is gonna have ups and downs. It's always gonna gravitate up, and the interest rates are always gonna fluctuate, and you could always refinance.
Because what period do you finance?
Well, depends on the market. So right now, let's say you went into a loan and you were a first-time home buyer and you qualified for a 5 3/4 Sony May loan, right? If 2 years from now, the rates are under 5%, you gotta see how much your loan amount is, how much you're gonna save, and what your closing costs are gonna be. Me personally, if you're saving $150, $200 a month, and you think the rate is good, there's no right guess. You know, we streamlined FHA loans, me and Angelo Gionis. I had people that were in rates at 4.5%. We got them down to 3.5%, and then during the pandemic, they were as low as 2 3/4. We streamlined the same loan a couple of times because the market was in our favor and the people were saving money.
Right.
I have clients right now that are in a 30-year mortgage at 2 3/4.
That's crazy.
It's insane.
So when
You just don't know, is my point. You don't know. But here's the bottom line. You're not buying a house as if it was a stock option or a stock that you're gonna try to time it. You're buying a house to live in there, and everything else works its way out. Meaning, you'll be way ahead of the game. I don't think there's one person on this panel, 20 years an attorney, 15 years an inspector, Chris, 20 years fixing. Chris, How many houses do you wish you bought when you started in the
Million.
business?
Oh, yeah, million. But you buy a house because you love it. You
Yeah,
don't buy it because of that.
yeah,
It's work.
yeah.
It's always gonna, sooner or later, go up.
You know
buy it
what
'cause
I,
You love it.
you know
might
what I
Pay
say?
more, but you love it. You buy it because you love it.
And Joe, how much was your rate when you bought your
That was
house?
my question.
Yeah, 1992, my first mortgage was 8.25. The house cost me 270,000, right? Was my purchase price. And back then, the jumbo mortgage limit was 202,000. I didn't know nothing about mortgages. All I knew is I didn't want to be jumbo. So I was able to put down 70,000, borrow 200,000, right? At 8.25. I go to the closing, right? I go to the closing in Manhattan because it was an estate sale. And my wife had this 3-week honeymoon vacation to Hawaii, right? I was getting married, buying a house, and going on a honeymoon at the same time. The attorney tells me,
Not
John,
me.
not him. I didn't know him at the time. I'm on Park Avenue in Manhattan at the seller's attorney's office. My attorney says, Joe, I need an additional $9,500. I looked at him, I said, for what? The escrows, right? The taxes on my house at that time were 11,000, which was big for 1992. So I go like this to the guy. I go, excuse me. I grab my wife. I go, come outside with me. So we go in the hallway. I go, listen. You made a trip to Hawaii for 3 weeks. That's without food. You know how much it costs to eat in Hawaii? I says, can you call the travel agent back then, right? There was no internet. We canceled the honeymoon right in the hallway of the attorney's office. And we closed the loan, and I never made it to Hawaii. 30 years later.
Still no Hawaii?
Still no Hawaii. I go in my backyard.
So when I bought my first house, my rate was 6 3/4 in like 2008. And then I refinanced it, then I was like, oh, okay, it's not that bad. And then I refinanced it down, like a few years later to 4.75. I was like, all right, I'm never gonna refinance this. And then I refinanced it again to 3.25. I'm like, okay, I'll never refinance this. And then I kept it there because it just, it didn't matter to me anymore, but I started at 6.75 to 4.75 to 3.25. So it's like, and now they're back up to, what are they at?
Oh, you're at 6.5.
Yeah, so it's all cyclical, it'll all,
So I bought my house in 1977
Oh,
for
yeah.
$40,000.
He bought it from George Washington.
Oh, he's fun! And the mortgage rate was 17%. I put $10,000 down, I didn't have a cent. My father gave me $5,000, my father-in-law gave me $5,000. That's how I got the house.
Wow.
And I've been in that house 46 years.
Whoa.
I rebuilt it because I'm in the business. I refinanced it about 4 times.
Yeah.
Now I'm down to like 4.1%.
It is funny, cause you talk to my parents, and my parents, bought their house a long time ago. I think I was a baby, I was probably like 2 years old, and they tell me the same thing. They go, when I tell them that the rate was like 6.75, they're like, that's half of the interest rate that I paid when I bought my house. When I bought my house, it was 14%.
I paid $40,000, it's worth $600,000 today.
So,
I'll give you $550.
So,
Chris, why don't, because you're always at the end, and I got a lot of stuff to talk about, so I want you to do your thing while it's fresh. Or unless you wanna wait for more people to show up.
I'm ready.
Go ahead, buddy, take it away.
So I'm in the home improvement business for 25 years. I fix homes, I do windows, siding, roofing, kitchens, bathrooms, basements, driveways, stoops, decks, and my first house I purchased was in right before 9/11, and what I was just talking about, I paid more than what it was worth, because I loved it. I didn't care about, like, if you love something, you buy it, no matter what. And I paid over market value, I bought it, and then I started having people living in the house, paying rent. And then a year later, I went and bought another house and, rented and kept going. And 8 houses later, that's what I do. It's just a great thing to do, is, you know, buy and own or buy and rent. It's great. But besides that, if you ever need any, advice or any help on, if a house is worth so much money and you wanna know what it's gonna cost to fix it up, I can give you advice on that. Go by and give you a free evaluation, give you some advice on how much it's gonna cost to do windows, siding, roofing, or, I always tell people to buy a house that, you always buy a house, no matter how beautiful it is, or how, when you buy it, you're gonna do something. It could be a beautiful, I see people buy houses and a month later, they're ripping a brand new kitchen out because they don't like the cabinets or.
I see that.
It's just, so I always recommend to people to buy that's just average and put money into it, and you love it forever. I mean, because you always buy a house and you wanna paint it, or you wanna just, you know, paint the siding or do whatever, so. But if you have any questions on anything, I also do, home improvement loans, yeah. So if you buy a house and you're maxed out and you wanna do your roof or your siding, I have, programs with no money down, small monthly payments. And it's an unsecured loan, it has nothing to do with the house, it's a credit card unsecured loan, so.
And if Tashana shows you a house that needs work, we do the renovation loans, which means your mortgage and the cost to get the house up to par is all one loan. And you get a guy like Chris to come out there with you to give you an estimate of, you know, what it's gonna cost. And then we figure out the loan as far as what you're paying for it, how much money you wanna put into it, and then there's what they call an after improved value. These are great loans to get a house a little cheaper because it needs repairs. And that's a big thing that we do.
So in other words, it's an after improvement loan, meaning you
Right.
can revalue it after it's
Okay.
finished?
So let's just take an example. You got a house, 500,000 is your purchase price. It needs work, right? So let's say you gotta put 100 grand into it, 600,000, your purchase price and the 100. The bank's gonna wanna make sure that you're not overspending, meaning that you're not adding any value to the house. You're painting, like to add value to the home, you're adding a bedroom, you're adding a bathroom,
Right,
you're adding to the square footage of the house.
right, okay.
A new kitchen, great, it's nice to see a new kitchen, but sometimes you could spend 100,000 on a kitchen, and it might not increase the value of the house by 20,000, right, Chris? The main thing is, you wanna make sure that you're not over improving, and the bank's gonna make sure that you're not over improving. Listen, there's some houses out there you could get for 400,000, put 200 grand and it's worth 900. You know, those are hard to find, cause at that price, investors are gonna jump all over. A guy like Chris will beat you to the closing table. But no, that's a renovation loan. And Nate, you wanna talk a little bit about that in regards to the legal aspect of doing those loans, or no?
I think we gotta go back, I think we should get back to the process with Tashana a little bit.
Okay.
We went on the pre-approval, we talked about pre-approval, then we kinda just
Okay.
pushed it along, so let's get back to Tashana, and then
I will
we'll
circle
talk about
back.
that, yeah.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
so we were talking about getting your pre-approval. Now, is there any programs that can help first-time home buyers?
Yes. Is everyone in here a first-time home buyer? All right, so when you wanna get pre-approved by a bank, all we care about is three things: credit, income, assets. Assets are how much money you have to work with. Those are the three things I care about. Once I know your credit, I see your income, I could play with the numbers and tell you, if you found a house in Nassau County, your purchase price is gonna be no more than $500,000. You have $50,000 to play with, $10,000 down. We could play with the numbers. And when I do the pre-approval, you know what you're comfortable with. I might say, look, you're approved for $800,000 house. Your payment's $6,000 a month. You're like, I'm not doing that. That's up to you. That's your comfort level. As far as first-time homebuyer programs, in the state of New York, there's an agency called Sony May. I have a flyer there. Don't worry about, anything that you might not understand. We could go over it again. But Sony May is an agency from New York, anywhere in the state of New York. You could buy a house with as little as 3% down payment. They have two programs. Everything is based on income limits. So the lower income limit is called Achieve the Dream. The rate right now is 5.75. And then the other program with higher income is called the Low Interest Program. That rate is 6.25. Now, that loan program also comes with assistance, 3% of the purchase price. So that means if you found the house for $500 and you wanted assistance, they'll give you $15,000, 3% of the purchase price towards your down payment or your closing cost, however you want to use it. You can also do this loan program, Sony May, with as little as 1% of your own money. So if you found a house for $500,000, you have to have $5,000 of your own money. You could get a gift from a relative for the rest of the money, and the assistance from Sony May. All they care about is you have 1% of that transaction. Now, the catch to that whole program is, A, you have to fit into their income. The income is different per county. Nassau and Suffolk is the same. Kings, Richmond, they're all different income limits. It's my job to tell you that you fit into the program. It's probably the best program out there as far as the interest rate and what it does for you as far as getting in a house with the least amount of money. And then you got a real estate agent like this guy over here who hasn't said anything yet. He'll work on getting you a seller's concession. You want to tell them what that is?
All right, what, a seller's concession is when you're making an offer, market is okay for that now, or right for that right now. If there were 10 buyers, bidding on a house, the seller's probably not gonna wanna participate in that. It would let you know that this is the type of house, and for whatever reason, it was priced below other homes, or it's something about it is making it, super attractive. But for most of the houses that are on the market now, at least half the houses, say, when you negotiate a price, let's use the 500,000 number, because you were using that. So if you wanna buy a home for 500, you could buy it for 500 and ask the seller to pay up to, well, it's up to 6%, but that's a little steep for what they'll really allow. Let's say 3% of the price. And we're back to that, there's 15,000. We can ask them to contribute that. So not just the bank has a contributing program, you can ask the seller to. You can go up to 6%. A lot of sellers won't agree to 6 though, so don't put your thoughts there too much, because that's a tall hill to climb.
Can I interject?
Yeah.
1 second. With the seller's concession, you also have to keep in mind what your offer is to the seller. It has to be attractive to them, for them to actually want to consider the seller's concession. So you can't come in too low, basically, with your offer, and then also ask for seller's concession.
But other ways to do a seller's concession, let's say there was a 500 price, and the seller was firm on 500, and we were privy to that, we knew that. Let's say somehow we know that, or they suggested to the listing agent, if it's not on listing. So if they really want the 500, we can offer 515, them contributing $15,000, 3%, let's say, back to you. And you're really financing the 3%. I don't know if that's making sense, but you really, it's costing you like an extra $75 a month to get your closing costs covered. So you can do it one way or the other. You can do it from the top, where you're adding it to the price, but then they're giving it back to you, so that frees up cash for you, if you need cash to be freed up. The other thing is just the other way around, it's just from the price, when we make the offer, we ask them, if, the offer includes you, as Mr. and Mrs. Seller, contributing 3% or 4 or 5 or 6% back to the purchaser. And they'll look at their net, what they're walking away with, after that.
I just wanna explain what he said about financing it.
Mhm.
So let's say the seller, they don't care, they want 500,000 in their pocket. So Dean says, all right, we're gonna put the purchase price at 515 on paper with a 3% seller's concession. So that means that 15 is coming your way at closing. But think about it, 515 was the purchase. Sonny Mae wants 3% of the purchase price. So your loan amount's gonna be a little higher than as if the purchase price was 500. So what he's saying is, it's gonna be like $75 in your monthly payment, but some people rather have that money
Yeah,
towards
if the
their
cash
closing.
is needed, but you're okay with the $75 difference in the whole scope of everything, then, that's an offer that we would help you negotiate or work out. We have to know your circumstances based on what you know.
And these are all scenarios to help you not spend as much money if you wanna hold some money aside to fix up the house. If you have the money and you don't need a concession, by all means, we're not gonna tell you to do that. And you might even have more negotiating power with the seller not to ask for the concession, but I'm just giving you ways.
But I just wanna comment on that also where it comes in handy. Let's say you have your normal down payment, there's no assistance thought, none of his loan programs with assistance, no seller's concession. You have your down payment, you have your closing costs, you're good to go, except the house that you really like needs a new kitchen, and you weren't bargaining on a new kitchen in your house hunt. That kitchen is 20 grand. That's where we can do the concession, so instead of you spending money on mortgage, on finance closing costs, you can spend the money on the kitchen, you're just transferring it. It's kind of all on paper, but it makes it so that money is ultimately freed up to you to use for a different purpose than closing costs.
Could we talk about, we talked about financing, talk about the, construction loans?
We did.
You did? You talked about that already?
We just touched base on the renovation loans, yes.
All right, so, any questions anybody has right now, like where to start, or anything they're not clear about?
Everything is pretty clear so far.
Okay.
Can we talk about the legal stuff also?
Sure.
Like
Well, I think we threw a
could-
lot at him, like, in a non-structured way. I kinda wanted to, the process of the transaction is, from start to finish is really, first you get your pre-approval, as Shoshana was saying, right? Then you start going out to look at some houses, right? You find a house that you're interested in, you put an offer in, based on the Realtors, help, you get the accepted offer, and then now the wheels start going, right? The first step's gonna be, getting an inspection done, this guy, contacting your attorney, right, contacting your mortgage person,
That's
get everybody,
Attorney.
get everybody kinda ready to go, right? But the first step, after have your accepted offer and the deal sheet goes out and is doing the inspection to make sure that the house doesn't have any major issues. And that's where he comes in. So, it's really, Tashana's spoken, Joe's spoken, and then and then I think you gotta speak to him first, and then you can come to me, cause I'm really, don't get involved with, the transaction until, I'll start reviewing the contract, but if this guy goes in and says that there's a bunch of stuff wrong with it, the deal could die the next, very quickly, or, unless the seller says, okay, I'll fix this, this, and this, or there's nothing wrong with the house, everything is fine, but it kinda, the realtor and the inspector are gonna work together to kinda make sure that everything is okay before things start kinda going on the legal end, so, do you wanna?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm the president of Double Check Inspection Incorporated. I've been doing this for 15 years. I have a construction background. I've been around the block a few times. okay? So I know what I'm looking at. The first question I get from people is, do I need a home inspector? Well, guess what? It's the largest investment anybody will ever make in their life. Why would you not wanna know the condition of your property before you sign on that dotted line? And I double check inspection, I provide that. I go in and check everything in your house. The biggest problems today are flipped houses, because people see everything so nice. They don't have a clue of what's behind those.
Do you guys wanna know what flipped houses are, when he says that?
They were recently renovated, so they were bought either a foreclosure or whatever the case may be. Somebody buys it and they, patch it up.
A
Lipstick on a pig.
A
That's
flipped
what he
house
said.
is
Not
for
always
sole
that, sometimes
purpose
they're
of.
not nice.
Just like everything else in life, there's degrees of, the handiwork, the craftsmanship. Some people are really good at what they do, and then some people, they just, there, it's done.
Throw siding on
Okay, let me
it,
say
throw
something.
insulation behind it, lay over an existing roof.
A flipped house is for the sole purpose of making a profit. Somebody purchases a house and they do a flip on that house. It's like they said, it's a very cosmetic thing. They're not gonna put the money into this house like they did if you would buy, build a brand new home.
Right.
So they cover all the walls. A lot of times they leave the old piping in the walls. They don't get permits a lot of times, so the town doesn't get involved. You don't know what's going on with it.
Right.
I find plumbing behind the walls. You pull the shower thing and everything is moving behind the walls. It's like crazy. They put the dryer vent into the chimney. So not only that you get carbon monoxide, you die when you do your laundry. I mean, these people have no clue. They just want it, but it looks nice. You walk in there and everything looks beautiful.
It's true.
So,
It's very true.
yes, you do need a home inspection. And I provide a comprehensive report, an honest report. Every house has issues. Brand new homes that I go in have issues. And I point those out. So before you sign on the dotted line, you know what you're purchasing. My reports are very comprehensive. I have photos on everything that I tell you in the report. And I like to have the people with me, the buyers, prospective buyers with me when I'm doing the home inspection. This way they can put two and two together when they read the report, they know what I meant.
Right.
So Pete, how long does a normal home inspection take?
Takes about 2 hours.
2 hours. And
You get your report within 48 hours.
and you start from top to bottom or the other way around?
Yes, I start from the top, check the roof and work my way down. First I do the whole exterior. Your electric, your grading, it's to see which way your grading is pitched towards your property, towards your foundation, where you have a lot of problems. 2 months ago, I did a beautiful home in Saint-Gerard, $1.6 million home, right off the canal. And I got into the crawl space with that nobody goes into when it was flooded. Why? Because the grade was pitched towards the house from the canal. But people don't see this, then nobody went in this thing, and they didn't believe me, but I had a lot of photos. So there was a big problem there, but they negotiated a price with the seller. And the seller took off a certain amount of money to get a foundation specialist.
So
But
there's solutions to everything if there's an issue?
everything is fixable.
Exactly, I was just about to say
It
the
all
same thing.
depends on how much you wanna put into the house and how much you like the house.
I just wanna say something about home inspections, though, just a general comment on these, look at them as like an owner's manual to the house. Stuff that that's coming up, stuff that that needs to be taken care of, stuff to keep your eye on, things that if you maintain this way, it'll add, more years to the life of it. And certainly there's items in a home that need repair, and there's items in a home that cause you to not want to buy this home and proceed. It's just too much, or it's it's electric, it's something that you're uncomfortable with, And, but there's always gonna be a lot of items on the report. Our job as realtors also with Pete is to help you decipher what's normal wear and tear, what's normal aging of a home, because the seller's not gonna reimburse you for like normal aging of a house. But it's Pete's job to let you know that this is aging normally, or this is aging, so keep an eye on it. Look out for this,
I recommend a lot of stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of recommendations as much as
A
stuff.
lot of recommendations. If you have moisture stains in your basement, in the corners of your basement, it could be a simple thing as your downspouts don't have the an extension on it to route it away from the foundation.
Right.
And those
That
are,
corrects it, and I had somebody call me a year later that I did an inspection for and said, Pete, you were right. I put all these extensions, I fixed the gutters, I corrected the grade pitching towards the property. I have no more moisture in my basement.
My landscapers keep knocking mine out of whack
Yeah, they do that,
every time they come.
yes.
So what are the prices for home inspection?
Home inspections vary for the size of the house, the amount of rooms, the amount of bathrooms and kitchens. It averages anywhere from $5 to $650 for a one family. It can go up to $750 for a two family. I add another $125. But I also do termite inspection, I'm licensed,
Okay.
and I provide radon testing. Now, in this area, they don't do much radon testing. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's a naturally occurring substance in the ground, right? Mostly in rocky areas like Westchester, you would have that. Granite has radon, but it's so minute that it's not
Yeah.
even talkable, you know, so, but I provide those services, you know.
Okay.
I check for mold, I'm not a licensed mold, now you gotta have a license, but I do refer you to the necessary people.
Nice.
You know, when you, after you read my report, you know what you're buying. It's like, you know, you buy a new car, you wanna drive it, I mean, you have to know what you're buying. And if you waive a home inspection, that's a risky venture.
Yeah,
It
even
was-
when we're like our listing agents on the selling side and other buyers come in with other agents, when they make an offer and they're waiving the home inspection as a way to get their offer accepted, I don't get like itchy with that. I'm not comfortable,
Yeah,
you know, I just
That's
want,
a
you
very,
know, people
very
to know what's
risky
going on.
thing.
it's basically buyer beware, cause if you waive that the inspection, you can't come back later and like, hey, you know what, this is wrong, this is wrong,
Yeah.
this is wrong.
Yeah.
Like Mr. Thomas would know, if you see green patina on the copper pipes, you know something's going on.
Yeah.
It's your business, you know that,
Who's
but a
Mr.
lot of
Thomas?
people don't know that,
Who's Mr. Thomas?
right there.
There he is. You wanna,
You know what I mean? He's in the business, HVAC.
Alright,
So
so,
I find stuff like that and I report it and I recommend they get an expert to take a look at it.
alright, so they get the report within 24 hours. They get the report, it comes back to the client, which will be you. You receive the report, now you have a conversation with your realtor, whether you wanna move forward or not. What, or some stuff that
Well,
you're
what does this mean?
Yeah, what does this mean? I'm concerned about some of these things, and you have a conversation with your realtor. He'll go over that, and then we always stress basically only focus on the big ticket items. Small stuff, if you don't like the paint, let's not talk about that, because picture basically this is the house, and all of you are competing for the same house. So you might want this, but you don't like the paint. Like, let's tell the seller, hey, let's change the paint. You might not have an issue with the paint. You might just want them, hey, if there's leaks in the basement, can we take care of that? So the seller's looking to see who's got the longest list, they probably don't wanna deal with that. So we keep it as minute as possible, but obviously we wanna make sure that you're comfortable with everything. And Pete already explained to you what things are, and that way you know exactly what you're getting, so nothing's.
What I like to see on the home inspection is the big ticket items that you don't have to worry about. The roof, HVAC, and electric.
Boiler, yeah, boiler.
Well, that's part of HVAC,
foundation?
you know, and foundation cracks,
Right.
stuff that comes, you know, I have a series of what I look at. And that's what I tell the purchaser. I tell them, listen, you got a brand new roof, you got a brand new boiler system, your plumbing is working fine, you got a brand new electric panel. Those are big items that you don't have to worry about it when you move in, to start shelling out $3,500 for a brand new electric, $10,000 for a brand new boiler, $10,000 for a brand new roof. You don't have to lay that out. The roof is good for another 30 years. The boiler is good for another 25 years. You know, stuff like that, you know, so if I see an old hot water heater, the date on it, I'll tell them, you know, it's starting to be at the end of its life, you should think about, might have to put a new water heater in after you move in. You know, I give them heads up, you know, so it's important that you have a home inspection.
One of the things,
Pete, you didn't say this, and I don't know how you do it. The buyer's always with you on an
yeah,
inspection?
no, he did
Yes,
say
I
that.
said that.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
We always employ you basically, I know it's
I prefer
exciting
that.
basically that your offer got accepted, but pay attention to what the home inspector is doing. Don't start taking pictures, warning, I'm gonna put the couch over here, I'm gonna put the TV over here. Focus on the home inspector, always focus on what they're telling you. Because I've seen too many people when I literally have to take the phone away from you. Focus on what they're saying. That way you can't come back later on, well, I didn't know about this. You concentrate on what the home inspector's telling you. And you are gonna get a report, and if you have questions, you can either reach out to the realtor or reach out to the home inspector, and they'll explain things thoroughly to you.
I had a buyer, he was with his wife, and the people were still in the house, the sellers. It was during baseball season. This guy sat down on the couch and watched the baseball game while his wife walked around with him. I said, really? Whatever.
Baseball is important, so it's softball,
Yeah, I know,
right?
I'd
Wow.
like to meet him.
Well, wow.
So once we get the report, and you're okay with everything, you tell us basically, I'm okay with this and this, we'll talk to the other side, the listing side, and see what stuff they'll say yes to or no to. We'll let you know, and then we go back and forth, till we compromise, we get to exactly the same place. Once that's done, we tell that to our attorney, the attorney draws up the contracts, basically, and they'll go over them, basically, between the attorney, and then you wanna.
Yeah, and then I've been avoiding trying to talk for a while, and now it's finally my turn. Yeah, so now the deal sheet's out, right, telling me the terms of the transaction.
You wanna
right?
tell them what the deal sheet is?
That's what I'm gonna do.
Sorry.
So a deal sheet comes out from the real estate agents, right, telling me your names, right, the seller's names, the property address, the amount of the contract deposit, the purchase price, the down payment in full, like so how much you're putting down in total, the mortgage amount that you're going to get, the mortgage lender that you're using, all the information basically for the transaction to be put on paper, the contract to be drawn up, right? So the seller's attorney is the one that draws up the contract. So everything comes, so this deal sheet comes out to the seller's attorney, comes out to the buyer's attorney, and then the seller's attorney draws it up. The contract comes to the buyer's attorney now from the seller's attorney for review, and, you know, to most people, it just looks like, what the hell am I reading right now? It's like could be the most boring thing in the world, man, I do them all day, but you look at it, you're not gonna really understand it, most of it's legal jargon, and so I go through, I try to protect, you as best you can on the buy side, and the seller attorney is obviously trying to protect the seller on their side, and then eventually we'll come to a meeting of the minds, I'll come back to the buyers and say, hey, they're not budgeting on this clause, I would like it in, but, I'll tell you what the pitfalls of not having the clause in versus having it in, whatever the situation is, then you have to feel comfortable with, moving forward. You say, okay, we're good to go. Then, I'll speak to, I'll speak to the seller's attorney, tell him everything's okay to go, and then we'll set up an appointment for you guys to come in and review the contract and sign it, right? A lot of it's done by DocuSign now. I do a lot of, I don't see my clients that much anymore. I mean, I usually just send them a DocuSign and then do a FaceTime or do a phone call and go over everything with them. And then we have to issue the contract deposit. A lot of times I'll get the realtors involved in that, depending on how urgent the matter is. Most of the time, we could send it out by FedEx, but sometimes they want it the day.
Can I just say one thing about that, about the contract? It's very, very, very important that the contract reaches the other side ASAP.
Yeah.
So depending on who you use, if you're using a realtor or if you're using an attorney and they're mailing it, they're putting, what are stamps now? I don't even know. If they're using a 60-cent stamp to put in the mail.
Snail mail?
In a snail mail, that contract's taking forever. So one of the things that we like to do, we talk to the attorney, hey, is the contract signed by the buyer? Yes. So we'll make it our job to go drive over, pick up the contract from Lou and drive it over to.
What the money's wired.
Sometimes I don't even have to see, like, I'll send a copy of the PDF version, the electronic version of the contract to the seller's attorney, and then they'll come get the check.
Yeah, we'll pick up the check and drive it over.
Wire the funds, whatever. Sometimes I've had situations which was always interesting to me that the IOLA account or the attorney trust account that we have to put the money in for the seller side is Citibank, and then my clients are Citibank. They just go there and they'll transfer the money right over to them. That's like the craziest thing. It's a little weird. But there's plenty of ways to get it done, right? But they're right that the quickness of the transaction is helpful to you in the sense that you don't want anybody else coming in and sneaking in, because until you have a fully executed contract by both sides, either party can cancel and pull out of the deal, and then the seller can be like, hey, I got a higher offer, you know, it's just the nature of the game, and then you either gotta come up, or, you know, they go with the next guy, and, you know, you're out, right? So so speed does work, and that's why Evans was talking about today, like, you kinda want a dedicated real estate attorney, not a general practitioner who's doing all different things, because that person may not get to that contract for 24, 48 hours, where, you know, it comes across my desk. I mean, they're on me like crazy anyway, and I have to get, you know, I try to get it done as quickly as I
How
can.
often are we calling you?
Nah, it's text messages, not even.
I think I know all your kids' names at this point.
So, but anyway, so you wanna get it done as quick as possible. So once you sign, you send the contract out, and then you either wire or send out the deposit, then the seller's attorney's gonna set up an appointment to meet with the seller, or have an appointment via, you know, phone or whatever, do DocuSign on there. And once we have fully executed the contract, now we're in business, right? Next step is gonna be calling your mortgage guy, right? Say, I got the contract, you forward the contract to them. Now, you may have already pre-applied or have all your information in, he needs the contract to start rolling, right? Now, you're gonna have 30 to 45 days to get your loan commitment from the bank, right? So you gave them your credit, your assets, and your income, right? Now they need to go and do an appraisal of the property, they need to update your income and assets, right? Because things have changed since the month or so that you got the pre-approval, so you gotta update that stuff, right? So there's gonna be a lot of work on your end with you and with the mortgage person to get yourself, within that 45 days, to get yourself what they call a loan commitment, okay? Also, you have to order what they call a title report, right? Sometime, I mean, I think next time we should have a title guy.
I'm working on that.
Work on that.
Yeah.
So the title company, runs a search against the property, against the buyers, against the sellers, against previous owners, right? And they find out what's wrong with the property from a title perspective. So if there's any liens on the property, judgments against the seller, judgment against the buyer, bankruptcies, right? They run all this stuff to make sure that the house is right. They do a survey of the property. Survey is a drawing to mark out where the property lines are versus, you know, what structures are on the property, right? All this stuff is done. At the same time that you're trying to get your mortgage, I'm working on getting the title done and clearing it, or the seller's attorney is also clearing issues with the title company, okay? Then, once everything comes together, you got your loan, you got your title cleared, right? Then we're gonna, you know, move towards closing, right? First thing's gonna have to be that you got what they call a clear to close from the bank. So that means that you've given them everything, that they give you a checklist of everything that they need from you. You gave them everything that they need, they checked it all, you're good to go. They say, we are ready to close when you are, right? Then I contact the seller's attorney, I say, hey, we're ready to close, we're clear to close. When are you available? He reaches out to the seller, they find out dates, I found dates from you, we set up a closing date, okay? Typically, the time frame when you're getting financing from the date that we have a fully executed contract, so the seller signed and you're signed and the money's deposited, from that date till the closing date is usually 60 to 90 days. So 2 to 3 months it takes for you guys to get to the closing. It can happen quicker depending on how good you are, right, with your documentation, because they're usually waiting on the clients to get their stuff done, right? So because you have to go to the bank, you gotta wait for your statement to come in for the month, right? So you get a monthly statement from the bank, so if you're trying to get stuff on the 15th, you gotta usually wait to the 30th, and then they get their statement, and then you gotta give it to him, right? And then the next step would be you have a final walkthrough with the Realtors again, right? So now the Realtors, basically the seller's supposed to deliver the house in the same condition that you saw it 60 days ago. They're gonna deliver it at closing that same way. And the way you figure that out is by doing the final walkthrough, right? You go with them, you say, you know, hey, they were supposed to fix this according to the, you know, repair addendum or whatever we had about the property. Did they do it? Oh yeah, they did it, great. What's going on with the basement? There was not water there last time I saw it. Okay, you know, if there's water there now, that's a problem, right? We got, those are things you check out at the final inspection. You know, you pray that there's nothing like that, because it could really, you know, mess up a deal. Everything's good to go, then we set the closing date, we have the closing, right, it takes about an hour to 2 hours. You get the keys to the house and then you go on your way.
I just wanna go back a little basically with the walkthrough, and then you can jump in.
Yeah.
Alright, so with the walkthrough, basically is usually done, if we have the closing, let's say it's Friday, we usually do the walkthrough either Thursday afternoon, morning, whenever you have time, or we do it the morning of whatever the closing date is. So Generally, the walkthrough usually takes, it depends on the size of the house, or if you're buying co-op condo, whatever it is, depending on the size of the property, usually 10 to 15 minutes. What I generally do, what we all kind of do the similar thing, is basically you're checking pretty much everything that he discussed. What we do is pretty much we turn on the sinks in the kitchen, the bathroom, make sure the toilets are flushing. We plug, if there's outlets everywhere in the house, everybody's got phone chargers. You can't live without them. Take your phone chargers, plug them into each outlet to make sure they're still working. They are working. If there's an AC, HVAC, turn them on. The heat, turn it on. We turn everything, dishwasher, turn everything on, obviously, and that's pretty much it. Everything's okay, you give the thumbs up, you tell your attorney, hey, everything's fine, just did the walkthrough. Every time we do a walkthrough, we always suggest to our buyers, call your attorney, let them know thumbs up, or if there's an issue, I'm gonna tell the attorney, but you should definitely call the attorney, let them know, hey, they were supposed to leave a fixture here, it's not here, blah, blah, blah. Everything's fixable. We can do credits, which I'll let him talk about the credits if need be. But
Yeah, but like the more, usually you do it within 48 hours to 24 hours of the closing, right? The walkthrough is when you do it 48 hours, between 48 and 24 hours of the closing date. If you do it after that, like if you do it on the morning of the closing, then and something's wrong, it doesn't give me the opportunity to fix it, right? It becomes a little bit more of a problem. And it could delay things, and it also puts us in a negotiating situation. If we're asking for a credit or something like that, they can call a bluff, say, no, you're not gonna come to the closing. All these parties that are involved, the lender, the attorneys, so the title company, all those people, now those people are coming to a closing, you tell me that there's something wrong, and I only have 15 minutes to fix it. It's a little bit different than if I had 24 or 48 hours to fix it, right? So you wanna make sure you let me know about that stuff, right? So that's really it. I mean, like I said, you get the keys at the closing, and then the house is yours, and you have a smile on your face, hopefully. And,
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
Let's say a guy's buying a house at 500, put 20% down, 100,000.
Yeah.
Who determines what he's putting at the signing of the contract, the amount?
It's determined by the offer of the realtor, so
Okay.
you don't have to you can put down 3.5%, 5%.
We do that based on the competition, so that
Yeah.
it's called earnest money, it's an initial
Right.
deposit on contract. I know you as buyers are gonna wanna put the least that you possibly can, cause you don't wanna tie up your money or risk your money, and the seller is gonna look for the most. That, so if two offers are equal, 500, 500, and you're putting down, and you're both putting 10% down on the whole deal, $50,000. So just using even numbers, if you're putting 10% on contract, 50 grand, and you're putting $5,000 on contract, yours is gonna look like you're such a more serious buyer. So when we're negotiating your offer, we'll get feelers from the seller's side, the listing agent, we'll see what's going on. The same thing as with the sales concession, like what is the appetite on this home from other buyers? And if there's a lot of appetite from other buyers, you're probably gonna wanna put a larger amount. If you're doing 3% down loans, you put the whole 3% down. Don't try to split it in half. Sometimes people wanna take whatever the deposit is and split it in half. It's not always a good look with the seller. So we'll give you the advice on when that's acceptable and not acceptable. A number to consider though, is never less than $10,000. Jed, you agree with?
Yeah.
You agree with that? Should never.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that, what it is that's the money that you're putting down at the contract that the seller's attorney is holding in escrow for the transaction. So the seller's attorney, so obviously they want more money, right? Because if something happens on the deal, you default on the contract, you do something, you wanna pull out of the contract, right? And they wanna try to keep your deposit, right? If you're putting down 5%, it might not be as advantageous to them as 10%, right? But the thing is, I explained to my sellers attorneys when they're harping on it being 10% or 5%. Listen, I said, the amount you put down is dependent upon the person that's putting it down's financial situation. I go, my client who is putting down 5%, right? Doesn't want to lose that 5% just as much as the person who may have more money who's putting down 10%. I'm like, it's worth that 5% is worth just as much as that other guy putting 10%. So I always explain that to them. So and that it does make a difference. But they, sometimes the sellers don't want to hear that, right? And they'll just say, we want 10% and that's it. And then we have to make that call, right? But you try to explain everybody's situation is different, right? This 5% is very important to them, right? They're not walking away from that. They're not gonna try to play games and lose 5%, right? So, you know, and they say the same thing.
It's so important what you
Yeah.
just said with that, so we have to know the whole dynamics of what's going on, it's just part of us helping you negotiate or make your best offer.
And you're showing them assets too, like a lot of times you show how much that you have, you know, available to, you know, like they wanna see how much money, like the sellers may wanna know, you know, you're saying you're gonna put down 20%, do they have the 20%, right? You have to show that you have it, right?
Or you have to find it.
If you can't, yeah, well, you have to find it.
Everything has to be
They're gonna make a
documented.
decision. So if you say, so like, let's put it this way, you say you wanna put down 5%, but you have $300,000 in the bank, right? They may say, why does this guy wanna put down 5%? Like, let him put down the 10%, right? But if you say you wanna put down 5%, you have $30,000 in the bank, you're like, oh, wait a minute, this guy, you know, this 5% is gonna be worth, is very important, you know, this is not gonna walk away from this, it's, you know, so it makes a big difference. They need to know the whole picture, right? And then that's what they do to make you look as good as you can.
Yes.
For me, I just, you know, I argue. So like, it's, you know, they tell me, Lou, it's 5%, the seller comes back 10%, I tell them 5%, and then, you know, I argue to the point where I don't wanna lose the deal, and then I'll ask you, what do you want me to do, right? Because you ultimately make the call for everybody up here. You're the boss, right? We're, you know, we bring you to where you need to be, but you guys are
We're
the
your
boss.
advisors.
And that's really-
Sean, you wanted to say
Go
something?
ahead.
So, and to tie into Lou, when we make her offer, the more information that you have to give us, the stronger your offer looks.
Mhm.
If we have proof of funds, we have your pre-approval, everything, it makes you stronger. But I wanna ask Joe something. Joe, with all of this, what are the do's and don'ts when you're applying for a
Excellent.
loan?
Excellent. So what I wanna talk about is the down payment that you're giving to the attorney. That's the earnest money down payment, right? So let's say you got 50,000 in the bank, right? That I verified your assets, right? But you're also gonna get a gift from a relative. I want your down payment checks to him coming from your account. The gift you're gonna get, we could always do during the process. And another big mistake is, let's say somebody has 20,000 in cash, and they go to the bank, and they get a money order. Where did the money come from? I don't see it coming out of your account. No, I had cash under my mattress, because I don't trust the bank.
Yes?
Disaster. We gotta undo everything, it's a big mess.
You know what you do with the cash under the mattress? It goes to this guy,
Yeah.
who wanted to do your renovations.
Why doesn't everybody
Use that for the rental money.
Doesn't everybody have
That's-
cash under
that's
the
how
mattress?
All right, she has, guys, she has a question.
I have a question. What about, we call it susu.
Yes,
Yes.
I'm glad you brought that up.
A lot of West Indians, including myself. Yeah, so do you still incorporate that into?
I'm gonna be honest with you,
Mhm.
yes, it can be considered. More than not, it's a pain in the butt for the underwriter,
Uh-huh.
cause there's more than one person involved in the account. It is possible to get done. My advice is try to avoid a susu, cause once they hear that word susu, the underwriters, they're like, give it to somebody else.
Years ago with that, they used to get
No.
literally a ledger, like a ledger on the
Wait, can I
license.
tell you something? I had a borrower with 10 times the amount of money that he needed for the transaction.
Right.
He had about $300 a month coming out of his account, going into a susu.
Mhm.
And the underwriter's like, Joe, this guy's got $300 coming out every month. I think it's a liability, meaning maybe he has another expense. So he tells me it's going into a susu. So the underwriter's like, prove it. I'm like, listen to me. The money's coming out of his account, it's not going in, and he's got $300,000 there. It was like a whole big deal. So they don't like the word, I'm just being honest with you.
I think the best thing you need to do, whatever you're doing, financial wise, always talk to your lender.
Yeah,
How often, Joe, should they talk to their lender?
um,
Every
it
week.
depends where you are in the process.
Every week, you should have a conversation.
No, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
If you wanna co-sign a loan for somebody, a car loan, are you gonna do it when you're going through the home buying process?
No,
No.
everybody shake your head, no,
No.
no,
So you have a clear to close, are you gonna go buy furniture for your house?
no.
Yo, true story, I could show you the text message. My borrower was closing on Thursday, last week. Friday, the week before, texts me, "Hey Joe, can I go furniture shopping?" No. I replied back, "No." He goes, "Okay, thanks." I said, "Thank you for asking." He replies back, "We're still okay to close Thursday?" I said, "Only if you promise right here on this text message that you're not going anywhere near the furniture store."
Can I make a
He
suggestion?
said, "I promise." But wait, can I tell you something? Here's why, what she's saying. Let's say your debt to income ratio, you have no problem. You have a great debt to income ratio. As soon as you go to Raymore and Flanagan's and you open up that credit card for 0% interest, we get notified that there was an inquiry. We're not running your credit again. The bank gets notified there was an inquiry. And they refresh that every 10 days. So if you're closing on the end of April and we just did the refresh, you're okay for 10 days. But they get the notification. So here's where the problem is. Mr. Jones, you went to Raymore and Flanagan's, there was an inquiry. "Yeah, Joe, I bought some furniture." I go, "Okay, here's what we have to do now. We have to get the bill of what you did. And then we have to apply it to your debt to income ratio." So maybe it throws him out of whack. He can't even buy the house, he's got furniture, he can't even close. But more importantly, this is what happens all the time. How long is it gonna take this guy to get something from Raymore and Flanagan's? He just did the transaction, right? They gotta produce a statement. They gotta show us how much he charged, what his monthly payment's gonna be. It's gonna take a week for us to get the paperwork. Now he's got a rate block that's expiring. We can't do nothing until we confirm what he did.
So long story
So
short,
this is
have
what
a
she's
conversation.
saying.
Don't buy furniture.
don't buy furniture, don't co-sign, pay your bills on time. Nothing changes, you pay your bills on time. Any questions if you're getting money from an uncle who you haven't seen in a long time, fingers crossed you have a rich uncle somewhere, and they decide they're gonna leave you some money, before you put that money in your account, you talk to your loan officer, "Hey, my uncle so-and-so is leaving me $50,000, or my family's giving me $50,000 to help me buy the house, can I put it in the account?" Talk to the loan officer first before you do anything.
Yeah, question on that. So if you are getting something like that, like a gift,
Mhm.
how long does it have to be in your account where you don't have to verify it? In other words, is it a year or a fixed?
Great question. So when you're signing that contract, all we care about is the previous 2 months' bank statements. So if you're signing a contract in April, all I wanna see is February and March's bank statement. If you have a large deposit in those 2 months and it was a gift, that's fine. We're gonna get a gift affidavit letter to be filled out. But if it was given to you 3 months ago, I don't care where it came from.
Always
And if
ask.
it's given to you during the process, we do the letter.
Well,
Yeah.
listen, yeah. If it's given to you during the process, hopefully you're telling me in advance that you're getting a gift when we do the pre-approval. But yes, it can be done during the process, and what needs to be done more often than not is we're gonna send you the affidavit, you're filling it out, and the donor's filling it out together. The bank wants to know it's a gift, meaning you're not paying it
Yeah.
back with a monthly payment, right?
Right.
And sometimes they're gonna wanna just see, your bank statement with the money going in and the copy of the check that they gave you. If it's a wire transfer, fine, they're gonna wanna see the donor's bank statement. And a lot of times the donors are like, whoa, I gave them a gift, I don't have to show you my bank statement. We gotta see where the money came from.
Joe,
Any questions?
I-
Okay.
go ahead.
Would it apply if you have like saving accounts that's specifically your savings for a house, but you have money coming out of your check from work, going straight to that, doesn't, okay, cool.
I got a question for co-borrows. You wanna explain how that works? Let's say you're buying a house, you're not enough income or credit-wise, stuff like that. How does the co-borrowing work?
Sure, so if you're applying for a mortgage and I pre-approve you and you don't think it's enough and you need to go higher for a more expensive house, you can add a co-borrow, whether it's a relative, a friend, either way. It's obviously somebody, you know, they're gonna trust you. And on the flip side of this coin, they don't have to be on the title with you. They could be a non-occupying co-borrower, meaning they're just helping you get the mortgage, or they could be a part of it, if you're doing it with a friend. Anything you wanna add to that, by the way, on as far as the contract goes, when they're doing a co-borrower that's not occupying the property?
No, it depends on if they wanna be on the deed or not, you know, if
But there's a question to that, with that co-borrow, does that co-borrow have to be employed or they don't?
Right, there would be no reason to put a co-borrower on an application that's not bringing income to the table. There's no reason to do that, and by the way, that's your co-borrower right there, that handles all the bank accounts. Right? Wait, he didn't know about the Susan.
He knows now. He knows now. I just wanted to say one thing about co-borrows also. I don't know if you guys addressed this. When you have a co-borrow, whether it's a car or a house, if you were co-borrower for somebody else in the past, their debt is now your debt.
Yes.
So be very mindful of who you're co-signing for, because you're taking on that debt as yours as well. And make sure that they're making their payments, because if they're not making their payments and you're making all your payments, it's your marriage.
on the note that you signed, the bank note that you signed, it specifically states if whoever signs this note is obligated to make the payments under this note. So if you're signing a line there and you don't wanna make the payment 1 month, she's gotta make it, right? Or if you're not relevant.
Thank you, I missed the word though, because like you said, they don't have to be on the contract as a co-borrower, but
But they have to be on the
they're
note,
on
yeah.
the mortgage.
Can-
So like I have people who are like, you know, I'm like, you're signing this note, like, you just gotta make sure that you guys, you know, like unmarried couples, I'm like, you guys get into a fight 1 month, I don't want, you know, you both have to make this payment, so you can't be like, I'm not making it, because you'll go into default, and then, you know, you'll have some issues.
Can I ask the panel a question regarding, we just finished the closing, how soon do they get the rest of the paperwork, the deed and everything else?
You get it at, for me, I give it the at closing.
Okay.
I'll give you the whole package. The deed has to go out for recording, but you'll get a copy of it. You get your title insurance, policy, showing that there's no liens or judgments against the property from the seller or any previous owner, that you own it in, you know, the only lien that's on the property is the mortgage that you took out. I give you everything that you sign and everything, I put it in like specific orders, so that you have like your financials first, then you have your ownership, and then you have the bank documents after that you sign. And you get it at the closing, you take it, put it in a safe place, and then the deed gets recorded. And then you'll get a whole bunch of scam, mailings to you, telling you that you can get a copy of your deed for $200 or whatever it may be. Just really ignore those, because it gets recorded with the county, and the original usually comes back to me, or I'll send it to the property address, and that's it. It's the only one you need, so you don't need a copy of anything. Like you'll have one copy at the closing, and you'll get the recorded copy later, because it has to go to the county to get recorded. But that's why I try to give everybody the stuff there, because it's better for me to have it out of my, you know, I keep a copy, but I give a copy to you, but it's better to have it out of my hands into yours, so you can go, you know, put yourself to sleep if you want, or start reading them, you know, that night if you want.
Here's my suggestion: when you get all this paperwork, because there's gonna be a lot of paperwork, scan everything, put it in the cloud, so whenever you need it, if you go on vacation, it's at the house, you're on the beach, and if you wanna read it, if you're that bored, you can go on your computer or your phone, your tablet, whatever, and you can take a look at it there if you have questions about stuff.
And
Always,
please
go ahead.
remember to write the password to your cloud.
Yes, save it somewhere. The other thing I was gonna
And
suggest,
all that paperwork always comes back to haunt you, meaning, let's say you wanna refinance in 3 years from now, and I say, can you get me a copy of the mortgage note? he just said, put it in the cloud.
Save it somewhere,
You
so
know,
that way you have easy access.
People don't save it, it's crazy.
Joe, speaking of note, let's say basically they bought it, and let's say maybe the rates might change the next couple of days, the next couple of months, years, whatever. Somewhere down the line, you wanna refinance, how soon can they refinance?
6 months.
Okay,
Does that apply to co-ops, by the way?
Does that apply to co-ops?
I'm sorry, it's a question, I'm raising my hand. Do you have to wait 6 months on a co-op to refi?
Well, us as a
What would the
lender,
difference be?
we want,
The difference is it's personal property, it's on a real property loan, it's not a Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, like, you know. Like,
Andrew,
it is
you
a
wanna-
backed engine, but it's a different type.
and Jenny, thoughts on that?
Do you have to wait 6 months on a co-op?
I mean, technically, you could refinance sooner,
Okay,
you know, but the reality is the first month and a half, you're not even making a payment,
Yeah, I know.
right? So when he says 6 months, if you made 3 payments on that, you know, that's kind of what it looks like. I mean, technically, if you had a rate at 7 and 2 months later, rates are at 4, can you refinance? Sure, but the reality as a lender, we can't go. Let me explain it this way, right? We sell the loan off sometimes, and when we sell it off, we have to make sure that we can't go back to that lender within a 6-month or a 12-month period. That doesn't mean we couldn't go back to a different lender if we sold it off, but, yeah, I mean, technically, you could refinance within 3 to 6 months.
what if you buy it all cash? Can you
All
lend-
cash, you could refinance it anytime, you just have to use the value that it was the first year, unless you could show the repairs that were done.
But on a co-op, you can,
I mean, the co-op, same thing.
so I have a client buying it all cash because her
Yeah,
mortgage fell through, and now she's
could-
gonna
yeah.
she wants to refinance
She
right
could
away. I don't know what
refinance
to
it right
tell
away,
her.
that's not a problem,
No.
off the,
Yeah.
purchase price.
here's the
Yeah,
beautiful
they
thing,
just- She's just gotta show that she used her money,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
Cause she's gonna do
Yeah,
a
yeah,
cash
yeah,
out,
gift, yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, yeah.
so here's the beautiful thing, when you're going through this and you finish, you bought the house, a few months goes by, realtors like us, the 3 of us, we stay in contact with you. We're not just a realtor just for that one transaction. We want to be a family realtor. So when anything real estate related comes up, or if we see something in the news, we try and keep our pulse on what's going on. So we're constantly talking to Joe and Angelo. So if there's something that we think, hey, we like to save people money, because who doesn't like to save money? So if we hear something, hey, I think this might be a beneficial thing for my clients, I'll reach out to you guys. Hey, I don't know if you're aware of this. Like during the pandemic, rates they dropped, and a lot of people had rates at a higher number. We took it upon ourselves to call up our clients. Hey, I don't know what you were when you bought your house, what the rate was, but basically, if it's over X amount, you might want to refinance. If you don't remember who your loan officer is, I have 2 people right here that you should be calling, talk to ASAP. Or if you have your loan officer from the previous transaction, and they're not responding to you, they're not calling you back, they're too busy, you got your loan officers. Always reach out to your agent. Make sure your agent should be a resource. It's going to be your resource as well. So if you need somebody, you need a contractor, boom, there you go. Attorney, home inspector, loan officers, and it goes the other way around also. So if you need a real agent that's going to have your back, knows the environment where you want to be, you reach out to your resource partners, because that's what we are.
Well, we have on our website, there's